Hey guys, here's 5 important CS2 tips that I believe everyone should know. If you didn't know these things before, then they'll definitely help you, whether it's in your pugs or your league team. Alright, so tip number 1 is to bind your grenades. I know it may not seem like a big deal, but this is really one of the most important things you can do in order to improve. If you haven't heard of this before, this means binding each of the important nades to a key on your keyboard so you can easily press it. The ones I use is F for flash, X for smoke, C for molly, and then 4 for HE grenade. This will all just be personal preference. I know people who use it on their mouse or even just different buttons on the keyboard. So it's really up to you, and I'll even link a website that I used before that makes it really easy to pick what binds you want. And I'll even leave the commands to my nade binds if you want to use the ones I use. I'm not gonna lie, it took me a while to find a good example because using nade binds just seems objectively better in every situation. But one good example I could show you is imagine you're running off cat to clear mid after the enemy team just A executed, and once mid is clear, your teammate on A, jungle side, asks for a bench flash to get flashed through this jungle smoke. If you as the cat player starts fumbling your nades, misses your flash, and throws it a little bit too late, that's going to be on you because the T's might be too close and this jungle player's play may not be good anymore. But imagine you have nade binds, and as soon as he calls for the flash, you just press a button like F, and you instantly have the flash out, and can just flash over. Another good example from Catwalk would be if you hear a T underpass, and you want to use your molly, using a scroll wheel, or pressing 4 or 5 times would definitely be the slowest way, but simply pressing a button like C would definitely be the fastest way, and you won't miss the timing of mauling this person before they can get out to bottom mid. Alright, so the second tip is going to be to understand how to correctly peek angles. There's really 2 main factors to take into account when you're peeking an angle. The first one is how close you are to the angle, and the second one is if your shadow is going to be showing before you are. First, I'll explain why peeking too close to an angle is bad. If we were playing against a CT who's playing here, we might want to peek close like this, but this is definitely incorrect. As you can see, at this point in the peek, we can't see this angle at all, but if we were to place a bot, he can see our entire left side. And if we were to peek too far back on this wall, this player would be able to see our entire shadow as well. So on angles like this, it's important to find a middle ground and not peek too close just because you're worried about the shadow, or too far back just because you're worried about peeking too close. The best peek here would definitely be to swing right down the middle. This tip will vary from angle to angle, but it's very important you understand these things because you might be taking fights like this and losing and not really understanding why. But if you're going to peek further back, you'll be giving yourself more of a chance. Alright, so my third tip is to learn nade sets, not just single nades. So if we're going to execute Inferno B, you might know a spawn smoke, maybe it's this one, maybe it's a different one. And you might also know a first orange's molly. But instead of getting in everyone's way, trying to throw the smoke, run over here, then line up your molotov, it will always be better for everyone to just be able to throw both from the same spot. I went to Anubis to show you guys another example, but you will always be 10 times more important to your team, whether it's in a pug or your league team, if you know nade sets. Instead of just always saying, I'm gonna smoke heaven, and just throwing your smoke and calling it a day. Imagine just being able to throw all these nades from the same spot. If you guys want me to go over all the important nade sets on each of the maps, I could definitely do that. Just let me know in the comments, and I'll make some videos for that. Alright, so my fourth tip would be stop giving the enemy team so much information. Now this works for both sides, but I'll just go over T side first. So imagine you guys are leaning heavy towards B on Ancient, and you're just doing a slow default. At the start of the round, the CTs don't have any information on how many of you guys are towards B. But if you were to start the round with one person mollying here, one person putting out this molly with the smoke, and then a third person spamming, the CTs are already going to have an idea that it's a heavy B default. Now let's say you're still heavy B, and you went into the mid round quietly. Now let's say the CTs just threw a cheetah smoke like this. If you were to have one person here jumping this angle, maybe spamming through the wall, and then another player here spamming, and a third player here jiggling for long. If you're in the mid round and you're doing all of this, you're giving up too much information unless you have a plan to go mid or A or kill noise in the late round. And if you're a CT, don't set yourself up to get targeted on an execute. If you're playing here jiggling, and then all of a sudden you just want to smoke this back and start playing into sight, don't just smoke it and run to emo. If there's anyone over here, they're going to hear you, and then when they execute, maybe instead of throwing a pillar molly, they're going to have one person come here and just maul you out. Now you're without a smoke, and you're in a bad spot. Alright, and my last tip would be to try and keep consistent pressure no matter what your plan is in the round. If you're a cheetah player, you might throw a nade set like this, where you molly back cat, and then HE the run up. If you were only ever to throw these nades when you're planning to play into cheetah, it'll become really obvious to the Ts, and they'll be able to target you really well. Make sure that if you've been throwing this nade set recently in the game, if your plan is to push down the ramp this round, you keep it consistent, because if they're going into a T-side default and they see there's no nades here, Even if your plan is to quickly push down the ramp, it's going to become very obvious, and maybe they're ready to counter it. For T side, this is really easy to show, because maybe on your default, you like to throw this smoke, so you can't get peeked from cat while you take B control. But if you've thrown this smoke 4 rounds in a row, and all of a sudden it's not there, these B players or this cave player is going to say, hey, there's no cheetah smoke this round, care A, care mid. So if you're going to switch it up and go to a different side, or do a heavier A default or heavier mid default, you want to keep things looking consistent, so the CTs can't catch on. Alright, so that's basically it. If you have any questions, just leave a comment and I'll answer it. Or if I'm live on Twitch, I'll answer any questions you ask there. If there's any type of video you guys want to see next, just let me know. I'll try to make it happen. I'll probably do some in-depth map tutorials for my next videos if that's something you guys would be interested in. But yeah, just keep it up. Good luck in your games. See ya.